strange. But what this does is it allows you to, like I said, get work done offline. I mean, because now I can run SVN status, and my working copy will tell me the changes to, this file has changed. I can use SVN diff. I can do all this stuff offline. So it's great. So -u means talk to the repository. Okay. Now, when you're not working offline, you want to do -u by default. I mean, you just find yourself always wanting to check with the repository because it's the best thing. So -v gives you lots of information, and I think I give an example of this. Okay, this is going back to my newly imported project with nothing in it. We're in the trunk, I think, and I run svn stat -uv, which means talk to the repository v verbose, and it just simply tells me your repository revision is 1, my local revision is, local revision, repository revision, or vice versa. SVN help will tell you. Oh yeah, I actually say so. The first field we see is the working revision. Second, blah blah, yes, so on. Adding a file. Let's write a haiku because this is key. I first did this presentation for the Central Ohio Linux Users Group, but they appreciate their haiku there in the heartland of America. Let me tell you. As long as it's haiku about John Deere tractors and so on. Oh, I'm bad. All right, so we write a haiku. Just as in CBS, you say svn add. We have a new file. Just as in CBS, just adding the file doesn't do anything. Okay. All that does is tells your working copy, hey, I have a new file. We need to communicate that to a repository. That's what a commit does. Okay. So this, going back to the library, is I've written a new book, and I'm going to give it to you. All right. So, hurrah. Oh, the only interesting thing here, I'm just going to talk about that. Adding a file, svn add adds recursively. Like I said, CBS doesn't. So this is wonderful. You can give it the -n option if you want to not have it be recursive, if you want to just commit a directory and you're not ready to do subdirectories and so on. I've actually never found the need for that, but if you do, who am I to tell you that you're foolish? Autoprops is cool, and I will possibly mention it later. If I don't, just look it up. In case I don't get this far, the Subversion documentation is available. The actual O'Reilly book, Revision Control with Subversion, is available as a PDF, and I have the URL here, so grab it. They actually have version, or the book that covers 1.1, which has not been published yet, but the PDF is there. So, svn commit. I told you what it does. You can commit as many files as you want. Commit by, and actually this is wrong because this is optional. If you just say svn commit, what you're saying is take everything from this directory all the way up and commit it. Now, I find that is something you almost never want to do, because if your commits are too sweeping, then the log messages to those commits become kind of meaningless, because you might talk about 15 things, and you have no idea which file actually. So I actually like to commit things a file at a time very often. Now, if I do something in a, let's say I'm doing web development, and I have to make changes to a CGI script, a HTML template, a JavaScript file, and add 2 more images, okay, sure, it makes sense to commit that as implemented Amazon Web Services support. Ka-chunk. And it's there. However, that's again personal preference. You don't work for me, so I'm not the boss of you. Do whatever you want. Just don't complain to me. All right. Useful options. -m. You saw me use this in previous slide. What that does is that specifies a log message on the command line. If you don't do that, you will be confronted with your favorite editor, unless you have not set the editor variable and VI comes up instead. Then you get VI and not your favorite editor, but whatever. Now, I think it's sheer insanity to use Emacs for this kind of shit. I mean, it takes 45 seconds to start up. You write a 3-word log message. message in them. GNU client is wonderful. If any of you know what I'm talking about, you run one XEmax, and when you want to spawn a new window, but I just use VI, it's faster. I just use -R all the time. Editor command option will override the default editor. The editor environment variable is honored, of course, because it's Unix. And this is what you get. This is the template for a commit message, this stuff right here. And you write stuff above there, and it's really cool because it tells you what is committing. So, very useful. Very useful indeed. If you save and, if you exit without saving and VI returns a non-zero exit code, Subversion will say, or maybe that's not, no, I'm sorry, it doesn't return non-zero. Subversion just compares the template to your file and says nothing's changed and gives you this helpful message. And you usually want to say abort, because continue will commit. And you don't want to commit with incorrect log message, because you can fix it, but it's a pain. Well, not too bad, but it involves your Subversion administrator, and he does not like to be disturbed. Metal knot in the affairs of dragons, right? And it will take you back in. -M talked about it. SVN update. What this says is make my working copy current with the repository. So this sucks. Okay, commit blows, this sucks. Push and pull would be two other words I could use. That would not be American profanity. But how do you know when you need to update? Run svn-stat-u. Now, CVS users will remember that CVS status sometimes is not what you want because it doesn't show newly added files, so you have to use, what do? You do something really bizarre.
It's always do CVS -capital N up.
Yes, exactly.
And then that just does exactly what it would do, but it doesn't.
Dry run. Yeah, so this is kind of, to me this is weird because people do that in lieu of status because they want to see status, but they run up, so Subversion fixed that. Updating shouldn't be able to hurt you unless you specifically don't want newer code, because you shouldn't worry about conflicts and such. We'll see how to deal with them. Useful options to SVN update. The revision, the -R revision says operate on this revision or range thereof. Okay, now this, I believe, solves Ian's problem from the mailing list. Okay. You can say, I don't want to use the built-in Subversion diff. I want to use any GNU diff3 compatible diff program instead. There's also an option to pass params to that diff command. So I believe he should be able to get around his issue. His issue, for those of you who didn't read the email, was I believe that he didn't like that diff, the Subversion diff, found changes to white space important, right? He wanted to be able to change white space.
CVS does it too. You have to give it a command to say ignore white space.
Okay.
I guess Subversion doesn't have that.
Yes, so the built-in Subversion diff apparently does not, but I'm sure GNU diff in all of its wonderful glory supports that. So he could say diff3 command diff and pass it some options, and I believe that would get around his problem. Okay, just by way of example, you can pull specific revisions. So let's say I have my free-form poem, which we'll see in all of its hideous glory. And we'll say, all right, whatever I did in revision 4 and committed, because at the time I thought it was good enough, I don't like that so much. Let me go back to revision 3. And then when you commit, that becomes revision 5. Okay? So you're basically saying, revision 4 is a dead end. It will not advance beyond this. And that's when you use the -R. SVN diff. By default, it spews a unified diff, which is the same as running diff -RU, a recursive unified diff. And of course, if you run it just on a file name, it gives you the diff. Now, what are you diffing? You're diffing your working copy of the file against the repository. Yeah, that's really useful. But the cool thing is that because Subversion stores all this stuff locally, it can do this when you're offline. So you can do diffs when you're offline, which is really useful. Because you want to know, okay, what exactly did I change in this file